Welcome to the Spotlight segment. This is a segment dedicated to interviews with developers or interesting happenings in the world of Android. And now for this week's episode, here's your Spotlight. We now move on to the Spotlight segment, and today John brings us a nice review of the OnePlus. If you guys remember, we had the unboxing of the OnePlus, and it took us a little while to give you a detailed review of the OnePlus. And now here's John to give us that review of the OnePlus. John?
Hello, and welcome to this review and demo of the OnePlus 13. I'll first talk about the hardware, and then I will finish up with software and accessibility. I'll go over some of the specs. This has the latest and greatest from Qualcomm, the Snapdragon 8 Elite. It comes in two storage variants, the first having 12 gigabytes RAM and 256 gigabytes storage, the second having 16 and 512. This is just in the US. There's also a 24 gigabytes, 1 terabyte variant available elsewhere. Those are the same storage variants from last year's model. The processor I mentioned is an improvement over the OnePlus 12. Another improvement is the IP rating has gone from IP65 to IP68/69, which means it's extra water resistant even at high temperatures and high pressure. So the example OnePlus gave is that you could run this thing through the dishwasher and it would still work. I think a more realistic situation is that you accidentally washed it with your clothes and supposedly it'll be fine after that. I wouldn't try it just to see, but it should survive something like that. One other notable upgrade is the ultrasonic fingerprint sensor. Last year's model just had an optical, although it was one of the fastest and most accurate optical fingerprint sensors I've used. So not a huge upgrade, but an upgrade nonetheless. It's probably the best fingerprint sensor, under display fingerprint sensor I've used. As far as the design, it's more flat on the edges than last year's model, so it does get completely flat, although on the edges where the front glass or rear glass meets the sides, there's a bit of a curve, so it's not as boxy as something like the Pixels this year or how the S series of Samsung phones has been recently. And the Arctic Dawn color that I have has a soft touch matte glass back on it. I don't remember what they call the black color, but that also has a glass back. And then there's a blue color that comes with a vegan leather back. The screen is nice. It seems about the same as last year's display. The touch sensitivity is great. The brightness is good enough. I'd say it doesn't get as bright as the Pixel 9 series and even the Pixel 8 series from last year, or any recent Samsung S series phone, but it gets close to that amount of brightness. They claim 4500 nits, but this is only peak brightness, which you can't force. It just happens in sunlight. Next, I'll talk about the battery. So this has a 6000 milliamp hour battery. It uses a silicon carbon battery, which can fit more capacity into a smaller area. And the battery life on this has been great for me. I'm a heavy phone user. I keep the screen at 100% brightness, and I do basically everything on my phone. And with those conditions, I'm getting between 7 and 9 hours of screen on time. So for me, that's a 1 day battery. For others, that probably would be multiple days. I will say for the first time, I've been able to enable the battery safety feature where it stops charging at 80%. So I just put it on the charger at night and it gets to 80%, and then I can use the phone comfortably all day without having to charge it. There was one day in the last month that I've used this phone where I did end up killing the battery, but had I let it charge to 100%, I would not have run into that issue. So I'm, for the first time, very comfortable only charging it to 80%. I don't feel like I can reasonably kill it in a day. And on top of the battery life being good, the charging speeds are actually ridiculous. This comes with a 80-watt charger in the box, and that will get you charged to about 50% in 20 minutes, or pretty much fully charged in 45 minutes. So those speeds on top of the good battery life means you're probably not really going to have to worry about the battery too often. I think the speakers are good. I don't use the speakers that often, to be honest. If I'm listening to music, I'm casting, and if I'm doing anything else, I usually have earbuds in. But I have recorded a comparison for you between this phone, the S25 Ultra, and the Pixel 9 Pro, and I'll put that sample recording here. Now I'm going to compare the speakers on the OnePlus 13 with the speakers on two other phones playing media, and I'm going to play them in this order: the Galaxy S25 Ultra, the OnePlus 13, and the Pixel 9 Pro. First, I'm going to play volume at 50%, and then I'm going to play volume at 100%, but I'm going to hold it a little further from the microphone. So here is the 50% volume comparison. Here is the Galaxy. Here is the OnePlus. Here is the Pixel. And now at full volume, here's the Galaxy. Here is the OnePlus. And here is the Pixel. While I'm talking about speakers, I'll mention that the accessibility channel, for whatever reason, feels very thin to me, hollow, no bass at all. It doesn't bother me personally because it gets loud enough for me to hear and it's clear enough for me to hear. But this does bother some people, so I will also give you a sample recording comparing it to those previously mentioned phones, and I'll put that right here. And here's a comparison of how speech sounds on these three devices using TalkBack.
This is a sample of the speech output on the Galaxy S25 Ultra through the accessibility channel with the volume set to 50%. Using speech recognition and synthesis from Google is the TTS engine, Voice 6. This is a sample of the speech output on the OnePlus 13 through the accessibility channel with the volume set to 50%. Using speech recognition and synthesis from Google is the TTS engine, Voice 6. This is a sample of the speech output on the Pixel 9 Pro through the accessibility channel with the volume set to 50%. Using speech recognition and synthesis from Google is the TTS engine, Voice 6.
Now I'll talk about the microphones. I was very happy with the microphone this year because that was one of the most disappointing things, in my opinion, about the OnePlus 12. The microphone on it was okay, and it didn't bother me for things like voice messages, but when I would go to record a video in the stock camera app, the sound in the video just felt too compressed to me, and it's not something I felt comfortable using to record my memories. So this OnePlus 13 has gotten a lot better. I'd be comfortable using this to record videos, and I will insert here some mic samples for you to listen to. This is a microphone test on the OnePlus 13. Right now I'm just recording in the standard default recorder app that comes with the phone, and I haven't changed any settings. I'm not sure if this records in stereo or not by default, but I'll rotate the phone back and forth just to see. Alright, this is a mic test using the OnePlus 13. This is what a voice message will sound like recorded and sent in Telegram. And this is what a voice message will sound like in WhatsApp using the OnePlus 13. And this is a video being recorded on the OnePlus 13. I'm just walking through my kitchen, now going into my living room. We have a toy train going down here. Hey dog, what's up? What are you doing? Are you watching Tangled? Are you not gonna say anything? Say something.
Daddy, I'm watching Tangled.
Yeah, you are, aren't you? I have to mention the haptics on this thing. I'm very happy with the haptics. It's something I don't think about often, but when I come across a phone that has good haptics, it really improves the experience. I'd say this is even better than the Pixel, which I'm really happy with haptics on a Pixel. And this is far better than the haptics on a Samsung device. If that's not your thing, you can go into the settings and adjust the strength or turn them off altogether. I know some people don't even like them on. Something I definitely have to mention here is the Bluetooth experience. So out of the box, it's horrible with TalkBack. So there's not a bad lag or anything like that, but what seems to be happening is that if you're not playing any media, OnePlus is kind of cutting off the audio stream to your earbuds, and what that results in is some things not even being said at all, especially short things like single words or characters when you're typing or swiping through items fast. You'll just hear the click, but you won't hear the actual item read out. And I've tried this with TalkBack, and I've tried it with just UO. I tried different TTS engines. I tried 3 pairs of earbuds, my Galaxy Buds, Pixel Buds, and AirPods. All had the same issues. For whatever reason, it was most prevalent on the Pixel Buds, but all of them suffered from this problem, and it was aggravating. Now, this is only while media is not playing. If you have media playing, the connection is very stable and works fine. So there is a workaround to this if you're comfortable with it. There is an app that you can install that anytime you have connected a Bluetooth device, it will just play silence. So it will play audio that you can't hear to keep your device connected. And it just runs in the background, and it always does this. I installed this, and it made the experience far better. Basically perfect compared to unusable, in my opinion. And it didn't seem to affect battery life at all. So if that's something you want to fix, then I'll leave the link in the description. It is available in the Play Store, but it has not been updated for a while, and will not install on this phone because its target API is for an older version of Android. But I did install it from F-Droid, and it's working great for me. Also, there may be similar apps out there in the Play Store that do this same type of thing, but this is the only one I know of. Now, before I finish off the hardware section, I need to mention the mute switch because this is one of the standout features on OnePlus devices. There's a mute switch along the left side of the phone, and it has 3 settings. All the way down is sound on, in the middle is vibrate, and all the way up is sound off or mute. It works well. The only oddity or quirk that I've come across is that if you have it set to mute media volume when you put the phone on mute, which you can change in the sound settings, even with the screen off, when you hit the switch to put the phone on mute, TalkBack will announce the volume change. So if you want to be able to put your phone on silent without anybody knowing you're doing it, and you want to be able to leave TalkBack on, then you may want to look into turning that option off. So I have mine off. When I mute my phone, it doesn't mute media volume, it just mutes all other sounds like notifications and ringtones and system sounds. Now moving on to software and accessibility. I mentioned this in my first impressions, but I'll mention it again here. You get a bad taste in your mouth right out of the gate because in the initial startup, after you turn on TalkBack and you're about to set up your phone, the Get Started button is not accessible to TalkBack by swiping or exploring the screen. You actually have to do a pass-through gesture or turn TalkBack off to hit that button. It's right around the bottom of the screen, probably near where the fingerprint sensor is, if you want to try to guess where it is. But yeah, that's a serious issue that I hope they address. But if you can get through that part, the rest of the setup is pretty straightforward, with one exception. When you're setting up your fingerprint, there's no audible feedback letting you know to move your finger, to lift your finger, to press it again. All the normal feedback you get when setting up a fingerprint on a Pixel device or a Samsung device, it's not there. You just kind of have to keep putting your finger on the screen, releasing over and over again until you stop feeling the haptics, and then it's completed. So that's what I would call the inaccessible part of the setup, other than the initial button. And it's that way anytime you try to register a fingerprint. Even if you go in later to the system settings and try to register a fingerprint, it's the same experience there as it is during setup. So that's unfortunate. But like I mentioned earlier, once you get it set up, it works great. It's very fast, very accurate. And you can unlock it with the display completely off, which is always a must for me. I'll talk about the performance for a second. So after you get the phone set up, or even during setup, TalkBack is very fast, very responsive. I mean, this is probably the best experience you can get on an Android device, because as we all know, TalkBack is very resource intensive, so the better processor you have, the better it's going to work. There were definitely no performance issues or hiccups when it comes to the speed and responsiveness of TalkBack on this device. So what I'll do now is demonstrate the launcher. Obviously you can use any launcher you want, but I'm going to show you what the system launcher is like.
10:28 a.m. Device unlocked. System launcher. Clock.
So I'm just going to put an icon in focus here.
Play Store.
And let's see what actions we have.
Shortcuts and notifications. Move item. Add to home screen. Activate.
So as you can see, this is based on the Pixel launcher, because even though we're on the home screen, it still gives us the option to add to the home screen, and there is no option to remove. So that's something that's annoyed me about the Pixel launcher for years, but it has not yet been addressed. So this is built off that, but they've done a lot of customizations to it. So I'm going to go to
Shortcuts and notifications.
show you what other options there are. Now you can get here by using the action or by long pressing.
Shortcuts. Settings. Button. Remove. Button. Unhide. Button. Uninstall. Button. Ungroup. Button. Not interested. Button.
I believe this not interested is just the X to close this.
Customize appearance. Button. Search settings. button. Selected. My apps.
And that's the end of all the options you have when long pressing. So I'll back out of here.
System launcher. Play Store. Page 2 of 2. Clock. Photos.
So I just turn page to show it does announce the page movement.
Page 1 of 2. Clock.
Let's see if
Play
dragging,
Store.
double tap hold
Shortcuts.
and drag.
Selected. System launcher. Add to create folder. Move to row 6 column 2.
So it does announce
Move to row 6 column 1.
as you're dragging.
Item moved. Clock.
So how this is different from the Pixel Launcher is you can't actually put the home screen itself in focus. So if you want to get to the options, what you have to do is a pinch gesture. So I'm going to slide 2 fingers toward each other.
Enter home screen editing mode. List.
And now we're in home screen editing mode, where across the bottom you have
Wallpapers. Icons. Widgets. Layout. Transitions. More.
and then if you go to more, that'll take you to the settings for the home screen. And all of that in there is accessible, and you can just adjust the settings however you want. So I'm going to try to demonstrate the recent app screen now, but it's a mess, and how much of a mess depends on whether you're using the stock launcher or not. If you're using the stock launcher, it's a little better, meaning it might automatically scroll for you when you swipe, but I don't know why it does sometimes and doesn't other times. But at least it's consistent. If you're using a third-party app, it will definitely never scroll for you. So I'm going to bring up the recent screen. I'm using the stock launcher now.
Recent apps. Settings.
So settings is in focus. So I'm going to swipe left.
Settings. Chrome.
It did scroll and it went to Chrome.
Talkback settings.
Then talkback settings
Telegram.
and Telegram. So now I'm going to swipe right to see what happens.
Gmail.
It went to Gmail. So I don't know what that means. It might be on the focus on one of these icons along the bottom of the screen, or I don't know what it's doing.
More. Button.
The point is it's confusing. Now it's on the more button.
Sounds and vibration.
Sounds and
More.
vibration.
Button.
I'm just going to keep swiping.
Show notes EP 218. Docs. Skit.
So see, I'm just confused. And you will be as well. The only way to actually navigate this is, so see, we're way down the list. I'm scrolling. Yeah, I got to the end of the list somehow.
Settings.
Like probably 20 apps down. So the most
Close all.
reliable way
Settings.
to do this is to just drag with 2 fingers. You'll feel a vibration.
Close all.
You'll know
Talkback
you're on the
settings.
next app.
Talkback settings.
Tap the middle of the screen to put it in focus. So swipe,
Telegram.
tap,
Telegram.
make sure it's in focus. And then to add more confusion, there's these buttons along the bottom of the screen. Let's see if I can find them.
Gmail.
Yeah,
Unlabeled.
that's unlabeled.
Unlabeled.
So they're either unlabeled or labeled, and most of the time when they are labeled, they're labeled wrong.
Unlabeled. Detected icon. Send. Gmail.
So this one says Gmail. I'm going to double tap on it just to see what happens.
Mail. Compose.
Okay, that
Button.
worked. But I promise you, sometimes it'll tell you it's going to take you to a certain app, and it doesn't. So my advice is ignore all those icons across the bottom and manually scroll the screen. I'm going to go back to recents just to show you
System launcher. Settings.
what actions there are.
Close. App info. Activate.
So there's close and app info. Depending on you have pinning enabled, pinning will be in there. Also, if the app supports split screen, you'll be able to enable split screen from the actions. So it's a mess. I don't like using it. If I'm not going to the very most recent app I was using, I'll just go back to the home screen and activate the app all over again to get back to it, because that's actually faster than having to deal with the recent screen. So 2 thumbs down for the recent screen. So the next accessibility issue I'm going to demonstrate here is when dealing with vertical sliders, you can't swipe up or down with one finger, so I'm going to show you what happens. I'm going to...
Bluetooth disconnected. Selected. 10:43 a.m. 94%. Slider.
This is the media volume in the quick settings panel, and it's a vertical slider. So first of all, I want to point out, if I swipe right from here,
Kui vertical seek bar dollar pattern explore by touch helper.
don't know what that is, but it's ugly and it has no use. Swiping does nothing. Tapping it, double tapping it does nothing. Tapping and holding does nothing. It's just something that's there for some reason. So I'm going to swipe back left. Let's see.
Brightness.
Okay.
94%.
So
Slider.
now I'm on the media slider. I'm going to swipe down with one finger. Let's see what happens.
89%.
Seems to be working, right? I'm going to swipe down again.
94%.
Went back up to 94. Continue swiping down.
89%. 94%.
It just alternates. If I swipe up,
99%. 94%.
I swiped up twice and it came back down. So the only way to adjust these, and I'll show you on the brightness.
Brightness. Kui vertical seek bar dollar pattern explore by touch helper.
Again, you have to get past that.
Display brightness.
And I guess I'm on the slider now. I'm going to double tap and hold.
Kui vertical seek bar dollar pattern explore by touch helper.
Now, it's not giving me feedback, but I can feel the vibration of the increments changing. So sliding up and down does adjust it. It's the same way on vertical sliders in the volume control panel. Either the very first volume that pops up when you adjust the volume, or even if you expand it to show all the volume levels. Those are all the same. If you want to adjust them, you have to double tap and hold. It will announce the change, though, for you on the volume sliders. It's just the brightness that doesn't do it sometimes. Sometimes it does it, sometimes it doesn't. I'm not sure why. And that's how all vertical sliders I've come across in Oxygen OS behave. The horizontal sliders are fine. So if you actually go into settings, sound settings, or go into display settings and try to adjust the volume or brightness from there, those sliders behave perfectly fine. You can just swipe up and down, up or down, I should say, to adjust by 5% increments. So again, that's something you have to keep in mind. It's doable, but it's not as easy as it should be. While I have the quick settings panel open, I'm going to also show you, well, yeah, why not?
Edit order of settings. Button. Edit tiles. Button.
So edit order of settings will take you to the settings for the actual what type of notifications, shade, and quick tiles panel you want to have and that sort of thing. But I'm going to go to edit tiles.
Hold and drag to range.
And
Reverse wireless charging. Button.
I'm just going to show you.
Capital R.
There's
Romeo.
no actions to add or remove these. If you double tap and hold,
Drag start QR code. Button.
moving it around and nothing's happening. It won't tell you.
Drag cancelled.
It won't tell you where you're putting the icons. So I recommend kind of just removing everything and adding them in the order you want, because all you have to do to add is double tap one of the ones down bottom that is not in the quick settings panel, and it'll go into the quick settings panel. And of course, they'll go in the order that you add them. So that's really the easiest way. I mean, you could technically double tap, hold, and drag until you get it right. But how do you decide to try to accomplish this is up to you. Another issue. So
Button. Location.
right now I'm at the bottom half of the screen, which is all the tiles that I'm going to add, and I'm going to swipe right.
Button. Airplane mode. Button. Device controls. Button. Wallet. Button. Power saving mode. Button. Screenshot.
And now these are not labeled. And what these are the page indicators, and tapping on them does nothing. And of course they're unlabeled, so you don't know what page you're on. You could count them to know how many pages there are, but that's about all the information you can get from it. And the annoying thing is that when I got to the end of this first page,
Button. Screenshot.
This last button, when I swiped right, instead of going to the next page, it went down to those page indicators. So I wanted to point this out because in order to get to the next page, you actually have to put 2 fingers on the bottom half of the screen and slide left.
Kids mode button.
And now I'm in the next page. This occurs here while editing QuickTiles, and it also occurs in the share sheet. So if you go to share something and the app you want to use is not on the first screen, keep in mind you'll have to slide 2 fingers to get to the next page. You won't be able to swipe through all the available apps you can share to. The next thing I want to demonstrate for you, and this is something I have reported to OnePlus and I hope they fix. This is also an issue on Samsung devices running One UI 7. And what it is I'm going to turn off this screen.
Screen off. Ringer silent.
Now I'm going to go to the lock screen and I'm going to miss the fingerprint sensor.
10:51 a.m. Lock screen. Move up.
Now, when you miss it, it tells you move up. That's good, right? The problem here is that I touched above the fingerprint sensor, so
move up.
No matter where I touched, I'm touching to the left of it, touching to the right of it,
move up.
Touching below it,
move up.
If you miss it at all, it's going to say move up.
Device unlocked. System launcher. Meet.
If you get it, obviously it'll unlock, but Google's introduced this feature to direct the TalkBack user in Android 15, and it works on Pixels, but it does not work on Samsung devices or OnePlus devices. Not only does it not work, but it's still there. I wish they had at least disabled it if it wasn't going to work, so that's just an annoyance, really. It doesn't affect the functionality. You can just pretend it's not there, but it's something I wanted to point out because I hope it's something they can fix and will fix in the future. Now I'm going to talk about OnePlus apps. For the most part, they use Google stock apps. The phone app, the messages app, they're all Google apps. The Files app is Files by Google. And then the ones that OnePlus has made their own versions of, like the camera app, are pretty accessible. I'm going to go to the camera.
Meet. System launcher.
Let's see.
Camera.
The one oddity.
Camera. Flash off. Button.
I'm just going to swipe through these.
Global EV off. Button. Live photo off. Button. Action mode off. Button.
So as you can see, things are labeled.
Google Lens off. Button. Subset off. Button.
This is the odd label. Subset off is actually the menu, so if I double tap here.
Close menu. Button.
It opened the menu. So the close menu button is labeled correctly, but open is not.
Aspect ratio standard.
These are other options.
1. Selected. 4, 3.
So as you can see, I'm not going to swipe through everything here, but everything's labeled. Everything works.
Flash off. Button.
I will say, and this is one thing I like about a Pixel device, is that you can set it so if I... Now I'm on Do Not Disturb, so it didn't make the sound, but if you if you press a volume key, it'll take a picture. That's a normal feature, but what I like is if you press and hold it, you can record a video, and then when you release it, it will stop recording the video. And of course, you can do this even in camera mode. Now, I think I changed this setting. I don't think it was the default behavior, but that's how I like to have it. So if that's how you like to have it, that is an option here. And one last thing to mention about the camera is it does not have face detection or anything like that. So Pixel beats it in that regard, and even Samsung beats it in that regard. And one more app I'm going to show you, if you want to call it an app.
Bluetooth disconnected. Kids mode. Button.
Is Kids mode. This is in my quick settings panel. And the reason I want to show you this is because I was pleasantly surprised that it was completely accessible.
Kids.
It opens a home screen for your kids, and just going to swipe through it.
PBS Kids video. YT Kids. Amazon Kids. Disney Plus.
So I've put all of the apps on here that I would want my son to be able to use. I actually used this in a restaurant the other day. You could just turn on Kids mode, and it's their own little home screen where they can't get at any of your stuff. They can only get at their stuff. And it was nice to set up. completely accessible, and even using it is accessible. And they actually can't get out of here. You have to go to
More options button.
more options in the corner.
Pop-up window. Parental controls. Exit.
And then hit exit.
Kids mode. Kids mode. Touch the fingerprint sensor.
And then it asks you to confirm with biometrics to get out of here.
Button.
And even while they're in there, if they turn the screen off, they can turn it back on without having to use biometrics to get in, but it will just put them back in their home screen. So that's nice. Now, I won't demonstrate the OnePlus Recorder app or the IR Blaster app or any other apps, but I will say that they are all accessible and they do have labels, which is more than you could say for some manufacturers. Next, I'll talk about the AI features on the phone. I'll start out by saying Gemini is the same on this device as it is on any other device I've tried it on. The one odd thing I did notice is that Gemini would not turn on Do Not Disturb. It would say it turned it on, but it did not actually adjust it. It did adjust other settings like Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, but that, for whatever reason, didn't work. I switched back to Google Assistant to see if Google Assistant would do it, and it didn't. So that's not technically a Gemini problem, I guess, but your mileage may vary with adjusting settings on device with your assistant. Let's just put it that way. Circle to search is as useless as it's always been. It doesn't give you any real functionality with TalkBack, so I won't say any more than that. There is a transcription feature in the Recorder app, so when you go to save a recording, it'll ask if you want a transcription of it, and you can say yes or no, and it'll do it on device. Well, I think it's on device. I'm not sure, to be honest. But that is a feature that is offered. Also, this has AI features for unblurring images, removing items from images, and other similar alterations that you can do in the Photos app. I can't comment on how well those features work, but I can tell you that the buttons are accessible and the controls are accessible, and you can perform those actions if you want to. The one thing that was pretty disappointing is in the OnePlus Notes app, there are AI features, writing tools for proofreading, shortening or lengthening what you've written, making it more casual, making it more professional, that sort of thing. But the problem is I couldn't figure out a way to use it reliably with TalkBack. What happens is the screen that shows you the preview of the text, TalkBack can't seem to read it. So what you actually have to do is accept the changes before you can see what the changes are. And I couldn't figure out a way to undo it. So, if you absolutely have to use these features on here, I guess the only way to do it is to make a copy of your note so you still have the original, and create a new note, paste it in there, and go from there to see what it would do. But it's just a pain, in my opinion. I will demonstrate for you the two AI features that seem to work pretty well on this. And one is AI Speak, and the other is AI Summary. Both you can get to from the sidebar while you're in a web browser. So OnePlus's browser or Chrome work. I tried a couple others today, didn't work. So I think you have to be in one of those two browsers or have a tab that uses the Chrome browser to open the tab. So right now I'm in Google News, the app, but that uses Chrome, so it seems to work there. So how you get to the sidebar is you swipe in from the right side of the screen near the top.
Smart sidebar. Smart functions. AI summary.
Let's try AI Summary first. So this is an article. Well, you'll find out. You'll find out when we get the summary.
Screen recognition is on. AI summary. Close. Button.
I have to wait a little while. So there's an animation of it kind of typing it on the screen
Regenerate.
for you. And now it's finished. So I'm just going to tap.
1. Microsoft is developing a new app for easier PC migration. 2. The app will simplify data transfer to a new PC. 3. The app's design and functionality are still under development. 4. Both PCs need to be nearby and on the same Wi-Fi for seamless transfer. 5. The app will involve pairing via an OTP. 6. The app's release date is currently unknown. 7. Windows insiders will get early access to the app.
So that's the summary, and it's presented to TalkBack as one block of text. So if you want to go paragraph by paragraph, you'll have to adjust your reading control to do that. So I'm going to back out.
Screen recognition. News. Microsoft is finally working on making PC migration painless with a new app.
Now I'm going to do the same thing to show you AI speak.
Smart sidebar. AI summary. AI speak.
It's the second option.
Loading. Screen recognition is on. Close.
Microsoft is
button.
finally working on making PC migration painless with a new app. Windows 11 insider builds reveal Microsoft's work on a migration app. The new
Pause.
Microsoft app will ease data transfer to a new PC. Details on the app's...
So as you can hear, I had it sped up. I'm going to put it to its normal speed.
Play the next paragraph. Speed.
So as you can see, there's controls to move by paragraph.
Disabled. Normal. 1.5x.
So I'm going to
Normal.
You can go between
0.5x.
0.5, normal, 1.5, or 2.0. Those are your options.
Normal.
This is normal.
Speed.
Windows 11 insider builds reveal Microsoft's work on a migration app. The new Microsoft app will ease data transfer to a new PC. Details
Play
on
the
the
next
app's
paragraph.
design and
Disabled.
functionality
Pause.
are yet to be final.
And now I'm going to swipe left to show you.
Play the previous paragraph. Replay. Microsoft's Windows 11 Insider. Microsoft is finally working on making...
So once you're in here, you can swipe through the paragraphs if you want to. So if you just want a quick way to remove ads and have an easier thing to read, you can. You don't actually have to listen. But at the very top,
Close. Button.
well, after the
AI
close button,
speak. Female.
you could choose between female and male.
Disabled. Female. Checked. Window. Male.
So you have to kind of, I just navigated by window to get in it when the pop-up happens, and it's the same with the speed. You can either explore to find it or go to navigate by windows.
Microsoft is finally
Windows
working on
11
making PC
Insider
migration...
builds reveal Microsoft's work on a migration app. The new Microsoft app will ease data transfer to a new
Pause.
PC. Details on the app's design.
All right, so those are the two voices you have at your disposal. So it does play with the screen off, but it doesn't tie in with the media controls, so you can't use your headset to pause and resume it, and you can't use the talkback gesture, which is by default to double tap with 2 fingers to pause and resume it. It'll just resume whatever you had playing previously if you had something playing previously. Now that I've talked about AI features, I'll just talk about some regular features that I enjoy or that I wish were actually accessible. So now I'm just going to play an episode of our podcast and show you some screen off gestures for media playback. This is one of the features I really do like.
From the combined crew of blindandroidusers.com and accessibleandroid.com, it's time
So screen is off now, and I paused it by swiping down with 2 fingers, and you can unpause it by doing the same.
for your favorite Android podcast. Click that now, and
Also, you can draw a right angle bracket or a right arrow, however you want to think of it, 2 diagonal lines pointing to the right to go the next track or previous track, which during a podcast we'll skip through it, so I'll just demonstrate that.
enjoy another fine episode from these fanboys and
Virginia?
the first post-sales.
Great. This week's been a lot of fun for me.
And
Carry
you can go
Is he hiding
backwards.
it from you? What's going on?
0, and now it's 10.
Magnifying
So
tab for the
this is going to pause it again. So there's media controls that you can do it while off screen. You can have it so if you draw a circle, it will take you to the camera. If you draw a V, it will turn on or off the flashlight. Now, those 2 gestures you can enable or disable along with the media control gestures, but you can't customize them in any way. And then they allow you to customize 3 gestures: drawing an M, drawing a W, or drawing a, I guess I'll call it an upside down V. So There's different shapes you can draw on the screen while it's off to have it do certain things. You can assign it to open specific apps or perform certain functions. So while I like that those are options, I wish more of them were customizable. The same goes for the other camera gestures, because you can, I think by default, double pressing the side key will bring up the camera, but also you can set double pressing a volume key to bring up the camera. So there's 3 ways to bring up the camera, but none of them you can actually assign to do anything else. So it's a bit redundant in my opinion. I wish it were more customizable. Another thing that's kind of a bummer is there's a quick launch feature where you can, when you put your thumb on the screen to unlock, if you leave it on the screen, you can have different quick launch apps there that you could slide your finger up to activate right as you're unlocking your phone. That's not accessible with TalkBack. So there's different things like that that I wish were accessible. They could be made accessible, but they haven't been. Another feature that I really like is that you can, if you're using navigation gestures, this is turned off by default, but you can turn it on. You can have it set so that if you swipe in from the left with 2 fingers, or the right, I guess, and hold, it will take you to the last app. Obviously, swiping in and releasing immediately will still take you back, but if you swipe in and hold, it will take you to the last app. So right now I'm in AntennaPod, and if I do that gesture, just like
News.
that,
Microsoft is finally
back in
working on
news, just like that,
chapters. Play
back
chapter.
in AntennaPod. So it's a very easy way to switch apps. Obviously, you can do the recents gesture twice. That was my old way of doing things. Whatever talkback gesture you have assigned to recents, just do that twice and it'll take you to the last app. But this is a nice alternative and I really like it. Another thing is the power menu. I'm going to bring that up.
Phone options. Swipe up with 2 fingers to restart your device. Swipe down with 2 fingers to power it off. Button.
As you can hear, all you have to do is swipe up with 2 fingers or down with 2 fingers, depending on what you want to do, restart or shut down. And I really like that. It's quick and easy. You could turn off your phone so quickly. It does not ask you to confirm your biometrics like what Samsung does. If your phone was locked, I mean. You can, if you do like that feature, you can turn it on in security settings, but by default, you don't have to do that. I just want to point out that OnePlus has gone out of their way to make TalkBack work well. So this is a perfect example of that. For a sighted user, there's a switch on the screen that you actually have to put your thumb on or finger, and you have to swipe that. You have to slide that switch up or down. You can't swipe anywhere on the screen. You have to swipe on that switch to either restart or power off. But they know you're using TalkBack, and they make it so that you can swipe up or down anywhere on the screen, of course, with 2 fingers because you're using TalkBack. Another area I noticed where the behavior is different when TalkBack is enabled is for these 3-finger gestures. There's screenshot-related gestures that are turned on by default that you can use to take screenshots or take scrolling screenshots, either holding with 3 fingers or swiping with 3 fingers. If TalkBack is enabled, those gestures, even if you have them turned on, they will no longer be active. So that keeps it from interfering with TalkBack's behavior, especially while you're in the Braille keyboard. So this has been an issue with OnePlus devices in the past. You had to turn those options off. It's also an issue with other manufacturers where if the operating system has multi-finger gestures like that, it can cause problems. So I'm going to give them kudos here for going out of their way to make sure if TalkBack is running, these OS gestures are not functional. So now I'm going to talk about accessibility settings. I'm going to open settings.
Settings. John Mark Dyer. Manage account info and security.
I'm going to go to the bottom.
Digital well-being and parental control. Apps.
See if we can find it.
Battery. Accessibility and convenience.
So you'll notice there's a section called accessibility and convenience. And why this is good is because previously in Oxygen OS, you used to have to go to additional settings to find accessibility, so it's a little more discoverable now. It's still 1 level deep once you go in here.
Accessibility and convenience. Navigate up. Button.
The first item
Accessibility and convenience. Accessibility.
is accessibility. You double tap here,
Accessibility. Navigate up. Button.
and then you have
Accessibility.
these tabs.
Selected. General. Vision. Hearing. Interaction.
And that's how you can get to and access the accessibility settings. While I'm talking about accessibility settings, I'll mention a couple things. I will say that I did not have an issue using the accessibility gesture, which with TalkBack enabled is to swipe up from the bottom of the screen with 3 fingers. That seems to work fine for me. It does allow you to have a default, unlike Samsung devices. So, just like on a Pixel, if you have multiple services assigned to that gesture, if you want to change the default, you swipe up with 3 fingers and hold. And then whatever the default is, you can just toggle that feature by swiping up with 3 fingers and releasing. I have a couple of notes on color inversion if that's something you use. It does not refresh the page like on Pixel devices, so that's a good thing. However, a bad thing is I noticed that you cannot put it in your quick settings anymore. Even if you go into the accessibility shortcuts for color inversion and add quick settings as a shortcut, it will not give you the toggle to add to your quick settings. So that's disappointing if that's a way that you previously had set up to access color inversion. You can still use it, you just have to assign it to a different shortcut. Okay, so while I'm in accessibility settings, I'm going to show you one thing that aggravates the hell out of me.
Hearing. Vision.
Going to vision,
Vision. Selected. Talkback. Hear items on the screen.
going to talkback,
Talkback. Navigate up. Talkback. On. Switch. Watermark prompt. Off. Switch.
watermark prompt. So what this is it's a permanent message on the screen anytime you're using TalkBack, which basically instructs a sighted user on how to turn off TalkBack. And it's just there on the screen, and you can't get rid of it. Obviously, going into here and turning the switch off here will remove it. And if I was not able to do this, I would not use this phone. But keep in mind, if you're low vision and you use TalkBack to set up your phone, this is going to be on the screen during setup. So it will block the keyboard. It will just be there to aggravate you until you can get in the settings to turn it off. Now, before I wrap this up, I do want to add a couple notes about Jishuo. So if you're going to install Jishuo on this, you're going to want to use a third-party installer like ABK Mirrors installer or Skit. I used Skit and it was able to be run fine that way, but if you install it with the default package installer, it won't turn on. You'll go to the accessibility settings and you'll hit the switch and nothing will happen. You won't get a prompt telling you settings are restricted or anything like that. It just won't do anything. So definitely install this with a third-party installer. And another thing I want to point out, because you might be a little confused by this, if you install Jishuo Lite, it will show up under accessibility services like normal. But if you install Jishuo Plus, the only thing that will show up under accessibility services is the Jishuo Helper service. Jishuo Plus itself is actually under the Vision tab in the accessibility settings. Since I'm here, I'm going to back out of TalkBack.
Accessibility. Talkback. Hear items on the screen.
So we have TalkBack.
Select to speak. Hear selected text read aloud.
Select to speak.
Jishuo Plus. Off.
And then Jishuo Plus. So Jishuo Plus actually shows up in the Vision portion of the settings. So if you just go to the General tab and look for it with all the other services, you're not going to find it there. So keep that in mind. All right. So I hope I've covered everything. I hope I haven't bored you. But I just wanted to point out the issues I came across, and I always, it sounds like I'm complaining about it, but I'm not. I love the phone. I would be completely happy using this as my daily driver. It's a great phone. The TalkBack is responsive. The keyboard, the Braille keyboard is awesome. I point out all these issues to let you know what you're getting into and to let you know if there are any workarounds that I've found. So I hope that information has been helpful to you. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much for that review, John. It's really nice, and it's a long one, like I indicated earlier at the beginning. And let's talk a little bit about it. John, are there any things that you've observed thereafter? I know you mentioned the transferring of your OnePlus stuff to Samsung. It was quite a journey there. Anything else?
Yeah, I don't really have anything to add to it because as soon as I finished, editing and then getting that review put together, I switched to the Samsung phone. So I haven't run into any more issues or come across anything else.
Is it going back or are you going to stay?
Oh, I'm keeping it.
Oh.
I'm well past the return period. Whether or not I'll decide to sell it at some point, I don't know. But yeah, I'm keeping it for now. Although I'm not using it as my main phone at the moment.
Okay, I have two questions. The first one is, do you think that Samsung is giving you a better experience? Are you just using the Samsung like because it's a new phone and you're just trying things on it, or just you feel like you're going to use Samsung because you want to use it instead of the OnePlus device? This is the first question. And the second question regarding the accessibility issues. Well, some people could consider them deal breakers, some not. I think the most serious one is the inability to hit that get started button, especially for totally blind people who could feel like they don't have the confidence to try tapping the button without TalkBack enabled and stuff. So yeah, it's I think the most serious one. But were you able to have any contact with OnePlus regarding the issues? Were you able to report them? What's the thing? Do you have any hope?
So I agree with you. That is the worst thing, because right out of the gate, like, people are gonna want to throw this thing, if they try to set it up on their own and they can't. And to answer your question about contact, so I did try to contact them. I went through the community app, which I thought is the way you're supposed to do it. I went to report the bug. The first bug I went to report was actually the fingerprint sensor issue, how it always tells you to move up instead of actually telling you the direction to move your finger. And that's just the first thing, but it was so difficult, like just figuring out like how to work all the drop down menus and choose the correct category and everything. And once I had everything filled out, there's this thing at the bottom that says you have to put your email address in, and then you have to hit a button to send a code to prove that it's your email address. So I did that. I put the code in, and then I hit submit, and then I'm presented with a CAPTCHA. After all that, proving my email address, I'm presented with a CAPTCHA that was completely inaccessible. Like, if I could not see, I would have wasted like 20 minutes filling that whole form out. And it was like, it wasn't a good experience, to say the least. And I did get an email from them, and it was basically somebody asking me if I had tried restarting the phone and had tried turning off TalkBack and turning it back on.
Oh boy.
And
Oh boy.
man, I tried not to be mean in my response, but I was like, I wasn't looking for tech support. I was trying to report a serious issue that needs to be fixed. If I did not go about sending this type of feedback in the correct way, can you let me know how to go about it next time? And then the person responded and said, basically, the usual, I forwarded it to the team that needs to be aware of this. And
oh boy, do I hate that. Whenever I hear that, I know it died on the vine, basically. So here's the thing that really bothers me, though. Why is OnePlus doing that? Because the previous devices, for example, didn't have that problem. And I wonder why they will introduce that with this. Is that I'm thinking, though, that the final move to Oxygen was during the OnePlus 11, right? Or is it OnePlus 10?
And so what issue are you talking about?
No, the setup process, because we've never had this problem of, setting up the OnePlus devices. So I'm just kind of wondering what causes that, or what has led to this, because was it the move to oxygen, or why?
It's just that nobody checks behind. Like, they changed something about the setup screen, like they wanted something different, and they changed that first step, and nobody actually tried setting up the phone with TalkBack. Like, that's the problem, So it's something that could be easily fixed, but I guess if
Yeah.
that'll be the next thing I try to make them aware of. Hopefully it goes a little smoother this time, but yeah. And to answer Green's original question about the Samsung, so One UI 7 is such a mess this time, and how TalkBack is, and how Samsung's TalkBack is, and how difficult they've made it to use Google's TalkBack. Like, it's just it's not reliable, and I'm having all kinds of issues. Like, it almost made me want to stay with the OnePlus. It was I think I ended up going to the Samsung just because of like the good luck stuff.
It's an old familiar shoe, John. Let's
Yeah,
be honest. I
it
mean, I
is.
have an old shoe that has fallen apart, but believe it or not, I still wear that damn shoe. And yesterday, I went out to the yard, got stuck in the mud where the snow is melting. Oh my gosh! So I know where you're coming
Yeah.
from. You're used to the
It-
One UI,
it-
and it's such a
so,
great UI.
like
I
everything.
I think that's one of the reasons why we decided to buy another Samsung phone, because I knew that I wouldn't do well. Like, I used Xiaomi before I used any of those other phones, but Samsung feels better. Like, I feel more home with Samsung. I even was considering buying Honor Magic, but when I saw that phone in my hand, oh my, this is the whole back is a camera, so I don't want that huge camera. Thank you.
Yeah, I think I trust Samsung's camera more, and so that's kind of why that's one reason I want to keep it. But going back and forth between the two, I prefer like using the OnePlus. Like, I like the haptics. The haptics are so much better. I've gotten used to some things on the OnePlus that are nice, but again, like anything with Android, like, I miss things about the Samsung. So it's like you can't have everything. So if
Yeah.
I'll just stick with what's familiar, I guess. And yeah, but I don't. Yeah, it was a close call this time, especially with what Samsung's done with TalkBack in One UI 15. It was like, if it's gonna be this messy on a Samsung phone, even, like, why not just stay with OnePlus? So yeah, it was a close call.
Yeah, so I think the good thing is having both, like you have right now. So now and then you can switch to the OnePlus just for giggles and all of that. I think it's a good idea to have both of them. But that OnePlus camera, though, it's time for them to fix that as well. I'm looking at them, and I'm looking at Motorola. For some reason, these guys, come on, fix that. Let's have that face detection for blind people.
Yeah, I want to ask you another question. Well, why did you choose to report the issue of the fingerprint sensor, knowing that Samsung has the same problem? So, why didn't you decide to go with the get started problem, which is a OnePlus problem, or the sliders or whatever? Why did you decide to go with this particular one, which is not unique to OnePlus?
Well, I don't know. I guess I wanted to see who would fix it first. Like, well, a couple of reasons. I wanted them both to know about it and see who, if anyone, fixed it or was even able to fix it. Because as far as I know, I don't know that, it's something that's been added to, that Google has added to Android 15. And they make it work with Pixels, but have they even provided manufacturers with a way to opt out of it, or told manufacturers how to get it working on their devices? Like, I don't know. Like, is it something that can be fixed? And if so, who's going to fix it first? That was one reason. And then the other was, I
I was planning on submitting a whole bunch of feedback. I didn't realize it was going to be so difficult. Like with Samsung, I could sit down and report like 6 or 7 issues in like an hour, right? But this, I just got so overwhelmed with the whole process. I was planning on like submitting other things as well, and then I just like gave up after the first one.
Yeah, John, their side is a mess. I know I've been on their side and I couldn't even figure out how to get something from there. And Samsung side is also a mess. The same thing is true with the Nothing guys. I remember when I was trying to return my OnePlus, or was it the Nothing phone? It was quite a problem. I have to record this. I have to. So I'm like, none of this again, because or else I'll just skip it. So I don't know. These sites need to fix things for us, because it's not easy. If one is spending like 20 or 30 minutes just to submit one little problem, then it kind of discourages you from submitting more of those feedbacks, because you need to plan a whole day in order to be able to conquer such a problem.
Yeah, but Devin had an email. He was I think he shared the email with the BAU group on Telegram. Yeah, he didn't receive anything important other than we will pass it to the engineers. But yeah, I think maybe you could also try this. It would be actually easier than going you're submitting something to the CIA or something. I don't know what's the thing with them. Why are they trying to go to this degree, like asking you to get a code and then to verify with the code and then a CAPTCHA? That's crazy. But I think that Samsung did it better here, so much better. Like Samsung Members is very simple to use. It's already you can easily install it from the store if you don't have it already on the phone. And they usually reply, actually, even if sometimes the replies are nonsense, they just reply, which is good. Yeah, Samsung does it really good in this regard. Well, they sometimes don't fix anything, but yeah, they show you that they care, which is something good. But yeah, maybe the email would be a better choice, especially that you won't need to go through all of the mess that you had to deal with in the app.
Yeah, I'll probably try that next time.